Carmelo Anthony and Russell Westbrook, two of the most polarizing players in recent memory. Either you love them or you hate them. I myself like both of these players, but I also can very much see where the dislike comes from. With them joining up in LA this next season, I think it's a good time as any to ask which of these two players rank higher all time. If you want specifics on the criteria, you can see the description below, and while you're down there, please be sure to like and subscribe and check out the other blogs. Like and share the blog as well. Your support will be greatly appreciated and help to inspire me to put out more content. So now without further delay, let's get right into it. All around talent. First, let's start with Russ. At his best, he's an amazing finisher at the rim, a great playmaker on the drive, and a competent defender. He makes amazing use of his athleticism to grab boards and enhance his athletic approach to the game. However, he has some major cons which get exposed pretty badly when he goes against greater defenses, and some horrendous shot selection to go with his already underwhelming shooting ability. And, it kind of shows when he can't get a clean drive to the basket. He kind of has problems. For example, in his MVP season, Westbrook struggled heavily when going up against the league's best defenses, shooting 37% from the field with terrible shooting splits and even worse shot selection. Specifically against the Jazz, but the same happened with the Spurs, in which he shot 36%, and the Grizzlies, in which he shot 40%. Slightly better, but not on par with his typical performances, and it only furthers my point. Russ is an amazing slasher. He can finish right at the rim, draw a foul, or pass to the open man in the corner. However, outside of those situations, he brings little to the table. And it would be one thing if he just had some lapses in his game and made it up through smart play and defense. Instead, Russ chooses to use that extraordinary energy to take unnecessary shots that he knows he can't make. Literally the definition of a bad shot. On the other hand, we have Melo, an elite scorer who can light up defenders from the mid-range, low post, and even occasionally from deep. The problem with Melo lies within literally everything else, and how the rest of those cons negatively impacts his ability as an offensive lead. Melo's problem primarily comes from his approach, as to truly be effective, he requires the ball in his hands for majority of the possession. And on top of that, he has very obvious tunnel vision. He is a great shot maker, but he doesn't make great use of the space he creates for himself or the shots he opens up for the rest of his teammates. Let me explain. For shot creators to be able to use their skill and finesse to make difficult shots, that's just a necessity. But you also need to learn how to use that same skill to create enough space to get more ideal room to breathe and to survey the rest of the court, as to not miss an open man, or at least a varier approach to keep the defense honest, or even slow down, or just manage the pace of the game in order to gain control of the offensive flow. Melo, however, is infamous for rarely creating much of separation for his shots, and that's not really the big problem. But the problem comes that even when he does, it's not on a consistent enough basis, and it kind of shows during the 2013 playoffs where 62% of his jumpers were unassisted. Nothing new, nothing too crazy there. But he only converted these jump shots on 42 effective field goal percentage. This is accounting for all mid-range three-point shots. 42 effective field goal percentage on your jump shots is not good. And he also, unsurprisingly, had a very low assist percentage of 9.3, while grinding the pace of the team to 87.83, making the next one of the slowest teams in the league. Long story short, this makes his team offenses heavily reliant on Melo, very predictable and very sluggish, which is not good to say the least. Both have obvious problems, but I think this is one of the few times where versatility, I had to use that word, versatility, I hate it so much. Versatility truly wins out. Though Russell Westbrook has bad shot selection and rampant turnovers hurt his team, unlike Melo, he is able to make great use of his athleticism to initiate the offense and impact other aspects of the game at an elite level. Whereas Melo, outside of his scoring and shooting, doesn't heavily affect much, and we already went through how even that approach to scoring is is kind of flawed and can get exposed in the playoffs. Next, career success. I'm not even gonna waste my time here. I think Melo got this in the bag, honestly. Melo's ability to compete as a lead option is far more impressive, and on top of that, he's never quite reached the lows that Russell Westbrook has in the playoffs. Russ definitely has some great outings, especially with KD, and he does have an MVP to his name, but since the KD teams, he has not had any truly impressive runs. If anything, they have been extremely disappointing, with both OKC stars being outplayed and beaten by rookie Donovan Mitchell in 2018 and getting dropped off in embarrassing fashion by Damian Lillard the following year. So embarrassing, in fact, that both Russ and PG ended up demanding trades right after stating earlier that season they would be playing in OKC for years to come. Yeah, that's embarrassing. On the other hand, Melo has reached 50, 53, and 54 win seasons, all win marks that Russ has never reached as an offensive lead. And before you say it, no, the 2017 Thunder was not as bad as a team as everyone tries to make it out to seem. They really weren't. And the following year, they added Paul George. Guess what? That team only won one more game. Then the next year, after that, it was arguable that PG was the best player. I would say PG was the best player the following year. And guess what? They only won one more game. And that was also the most wins during the Russell Westbrook era. The constant is Westbrook. And I'll put this simply. Westbrook doesn't make a great offensive leader. He's not the good focal point for teams to compete at higher levels. And before we say, of course Melo would win more games, he's playing in the weaker Eastern Conference with the New York Knicks. I like to remind you that all except for one of Melo's 51 seasons came from his time in arguably the toughest Western Conference of the 2000s during his time as a Denver Nugget. I don't really need to reference Melo's playoff success in comparison to Russ, but I'm going to, just to drive the point in. Russ, as the first option, never made it out the first round, nor did he ever compete with an actual finals contender as the first option. Melo in 2009 reached the West Finals and competed against Kobe Bryant in a 6-game series, and en route to that 6-game series against Kobe Bryant, he gentleman swept both CP3, who was on the Hornets, and Dirk Nowitzki, who was on the Mavs. He would then again push the league.
He's an idiot. Don't listen to this. He's an idiot.
Playoff to space are far more impressive than what Russell Westbrook was able to achieve as a lead on the Thunder. But once again, this just speaks to the career success. So we're going to move on. Team/universal value and reliance. Being blunt here, right? Though neither are perfect as first options, there's no doubt that they're amazing at what they do best. Russ has reached insane percentages in a restricted area throughout his career. Melo's is one of the greatest shot makers in NBA history. They both have shown the ability to carry large loads, specifically with Russ in this MVP year, and Melo immediately changing the Nuggets' fortune in his rookie year, with them going from a 17-win team without Melo to a 43-season win team with Melo. Russ transitioned surprisingly well from his role as a second option to a first option, and he was amazing as a second option, by the way. As much as I rag on him as a first option, it's just because you have more responsibilities, but as a second option, amazing. And, both at their peak were seen as very respectable players and valuable players, and most teams would want them when they were at their peak. The tiebreaker here is when you ponder outside the times in which they played, in which I see Russell Westbrook's play style adapting much better to the majority of NBA eras, as his athleticism, slashing, and hustle can translate perfect to any era, whereas Melo's approach to scoring the ball can vary wildly. It really depends, especially if teams in the past are not putting much value in shaping around ISO heavy play style. I can see it kind of hard to see Melo adapting and being as good as he was in the era he played versus other eras of the NBA. Lastly, mentality and leadership. Russell Westbrook wins. This category isn't even up for debate. Sure, Russ can go overboard sometimes, but at least he doesn't have teammates saying scoring 30 meant more than winning to him. Sure, Russ may stat pad here and again to get that, amazing triple-double, that such valuable triple-double. But there is never a game where he isn't giving 100%. Sadly, I don't think the same could be said about Melo. So, if it isn't clear, I think, after, pondering this for a while, I think Russell Westbrook would rank higher all time. However, that's simply what I think, I want to know what y'all think. What y'all think about this video. I'm getting right back into it, trying to get up some weekly uploads. Remember to like, share this blog, the video, wherever you're seeing this. Subscribe to the YouTube channel below. And yeah, hopefully I can finally put out the top 10 Lakers all-time list video after almost half a year of not putting it out. That sounds terrible saying out loud. But always remember, greatness has no limits. And until next time.